Welcome back to WAAAGH Tactics. We're here to talk about the rise of the green tide. And I don't mean the detachment, I just mean orcs as a whole. So today we're going to cover 3 lists. One of them is the Dread Mob list. We're going to go over the actual matchups, as I think path to victory is quite important. We're going to look at some 40k stats overall as a whole. Of course, I'll be reading your comments as this is interactive. And let's get stuck in, lads. So here how the orcs performed this weekend. So we have Warhorde sitting at a 56%, but that's only 2 players. So you can see just by this left column, the actual, I'll highlight it, but for those who can't, is actually how many players there were in total. It was 19 Bully Boyz out of the 26 Ork players that is. All right. So yes, one of the Dread Mob players that there was only 4 of did do quite well. We'll be taking a look at his list. But Bully Boyz are clearly seen as the default pick for high level competitive play. That's what everybody's seen coming when they've seen the double WAAAGH. It's very much Mega Knobs focused, and we'll talk about that as a bit. But I don't think it's the ceiling of the Orks, to be honest. I think it's just we'll say a lower, easier bar of entry because you need less models than something like a Green Tide, and a Dread Mob is a bit unique. So Bully Boyz is very much a direct, powerful, and it kind of stacks with what we've been doing since the index. As for is it broken? I still very much don't believe it's broken. I think the meta needs to adjust to it. And I think Mega Knobs can go up maybe like 5 points, and that'll be that. Because if you look right here, also there's Canoptic Court with 11 players, and they're at a 58% win rate with 3 of their X and O performances, or X and 1, where the Bully Boyz are at 5. So that's actually kind of close, to be honest. And you can look at something up here like Black Templars, where out of the 9 players, they have a 58% win rate, or Grey Knights is a perfect comparison to Bully Boyz with 19 players, just like Bully, with a 59% win rate. So it's not like we're sitting here, don't feel bad if you're playing Ork Boys and Bully Boyz. The meta just needs to get used to us. But something I want to point out real quick before we look at the list is how the Green Tide had 1 player this weekend. No diss to that player, how he did, but people, the main thing holding back the Green Tide is how difficult it is to play as in generalship on your body and time management with the clock management. Who wants to move 100 plus 130 plus models around from board to board for 5 turns, let's say, at an event, right? So we'll see if the meta even chooses to fully change to the Green Tide, because in reality they're going to notice as well that it's very low amount of players who do it, which means it could be a pretty good ace card to pull certain events in the future for several months. But Bully Boyz are definitely going to catch everyone's attention, and we'll see how that reflects that. When more data comes out, we'll be doing faction versus faction focus, but we'll let it go for a little bit longer before we get stuck in there. Hello to chat to everyone. Whoa, let's go, boys. I'm very excited for this first list we're going to cover from the Lincon 40K GT. This is, I believe, in Sweden, and I cannot read any of this, but what I can read is this says Leviathan Tournament Pack. Shout out for Discord for showing this to me and letting me know right away too. Yeah, this seems till they actually did use the GW terrain, which means I have to eat my words maybe, because the Dread Mob list we're about to cover, which did go 4-0-1, meaning it did have a tie on WTC scoring. Ties are kind of likely, as I believe it's 5 points, and you have to be someone by greater than 5 points to receive the other point. To beat them in a differential like 10-9. They split the points like 20 points as a whole. So as someone's winning more and gaining more of a difference, it offsets, and that's how you get these scores. If someone will get 0, the other guy to get 20, something like that, right? So he did have a tie, and we'll of course take a look at his tie. But first, let's take a look at Martin Holtgren's list. So we have a Dread Mob. Right away, I know everyone's excited. This is why I wanted to cover it. So we have 3 big mechs with shock attack guns, or the abbreviation is a SAG, S-A-G. So if you're new to Orks, that's what people mean when you ever see a SAG. They're speaking of the big mech with shock attack gun. So only one of these shock attack guns has 1 enhancement, and that is the Get Finder's Goggles for ignoring cover. That's the only one I would assume you really need, to be honest. When you choose the one that press it faster, it is nice when you get the 2 benefits you want or don't roll for the same benefit. But in the wording, it does say it's activated when you actually roll. So you can't roll one and then choose the other. Therefore, you're rolling for both and you're taking risk, and it's quite expensive for the risk. So don't make the package more expensive by doing that. Just put the ignore cover and you feel good. Then we have the mech, probably escorting a Gorkanaut, or giving someone some love. Let's see. So we have a Warboss in Mega Armor, and we have Zagrot Wartsnega. So Zagrot's making his appearance with his Scout 20-man unit of what do they call the Super Grunts, right? So -1 to wound, -1. They're just +1 to wound when they fight you. They're a weird data sheet when you do call the WAAAGH. They're quite annoying. Great OC, great at stopping alpha striking armies from running in and punching our dread mob. But there's also 2 more units of Gretchen, 2 trucks, 1 battle wagon, and 2 units of flash kits, a Gorkanaut, and 2 units of 5-man flash kits, by the way. And here we go. The thing I must eat my words for, 3 units of Luda. So it seems like I was a little wrong, or this is a very exceptional player. We'll see. But 3 Luda bricks coming in on what we assume is a GW format is quite beautiful. I'm a strong believer that one of these was in reserve, and hypothetically the other 2 could be in these trucks. As for, I believe, for this wagon, I would do a SWAT wagon if it was me. And that's just me. We have 3 units of mech guns with Smasher guns, and then a unit of Storm Boys. So what I mean by a SWAT wagon is you could take the 2 5-man units of flash kits, you can put them in the wagon. That it gives something for firing deck 11 that it has now, and then you also put mans in there because there are 22 models in there. So you can't get it to the T12 because then it closes off firing deck. So maybe that's not the plan here, but in some matchups that very much could be the plan here. And you can use the flash kits for the volume while your Mega Knobs go and punch something hard. That's why I think that could hypothetically be one of the combinations. Now, if you don't do that, of course, the Gorkanaut can hold something in there. You can jump out from the Gorkanaut's belly, maybe. You can put them in trucks, like I said, Ludas, or even the mech, the big Mega Warboss with Mega Knobs. You could put them in the trucks. But as a whole, I'm a strong believer that he possibly used a battle wagon as a SWAT wagon, all right, which I think is glorious. If you guys know SWAT teams, just take 2 different units, put them in an Ork transport, use them to kind of benefit from each other's strengths, right? A flash kit 5-man unit is perfect for SWAT teams as it runs out, it shoots, it fights moderately well against chaff, it's pretty cheap, and then the Mega Knobs don't really like to go out and fight chaff, especially because they can miss, they can whiff, and they really want to go just on their WAAAGH turn, which Dreadmob has to take into account here. So I like that it's a mixed combined arms. One thing I want to say as we go into this is there's no killicans, and I believe that should be brought to everyone's attention. Most people are talking about how it's awesome, but where the killicans at, right? I would love to know why he made this decision. If you guys know this, have him give us a shout out because we'd like to talk to him sometime. I just like to get the understanding of maybe why he didn't feel good killicans. We can all presume it's because they're slow. Their data sheet ability isn't as good as it used to be. And so maybe he just decided I'm going to opt out for it and just let Ludus do a lot of the work. So we'll see what his matchups were going into it because path to victory is quite important. So let's take a look at Martin's list. And of course, look at the chat, everybody. Whoa, let's go. I'm excited about the Dread Mob. I am very excited about the Dread Mob. So we have a Tyrannid Vanguard Onslaught list. So we have a Broodlord, a Death Leaper, a Winged Hive Tyrant. We have 4 units of Gargoyles, that amazing move blocking unit. So if you don't know about Gargoyle, they move, they shoot. As long as they shoot, they can then move again. So because their weapons are assault, they can advance in that first movement. So they're going to move, advance, shoot, and then move again because of their data sheet ability after shooting. So they're great for move blocking Orks. They're great for contesting OC because they do have 2 OC as they are battle line. Then we have Biovores, followed by 1 Gene Stealer brick. This is for a nice alpha strike with the Broodlord. Then you give these guys some dev wounds. So having the super runs to get in the way with this would actually be quite clutch as an Ork player. Then you have a Harrow Specs, nice cheap monster. 3 Lictors, 2 Maleceptors, Biovores, Von Ryan Leapers, and a big unit of Zoanthropes, which actually have great profiles into Orks. But Von Ryan Leapers, as they do fight first, they just kind of bounce off not most, but good amount of Ork units. Their strength's pretty lacking. Something you'll see on this list is it doesn't have anything to really hold the mid table. It just wants to delay you from getting to the mid table with the Gargoyles. And the Gene Stealers are really meant to alpha strike you and kind of brick you down. So the fact that he actually can put stuff in transports to be safe, right? So he's not getting anything super important tagged. He has a super runs to really get in the way and take that first initial onslaught. You have obviously multiple options to kill this. Harrow Specs, you have the Gorkanaut to go stomping up the table, and the battle wagons to help your Mega Knobs get into position, and a bunch of little units here that your Flash Kids can go toe-to-toe with. Once you break that stealth range, you can start fighting down a Lictor, shooting in, bopping lethals. You actually have a good amount of shots to shoot away these gargoyles, as other Ork lists really don't. Especially with the Ludas. Ludas, you want to overwatch all these units that are on here if you can. They're very soft. So I can see how you can tear these things apart, as his unit does have this Dread Mob list really does have a good combined arms focus when you start to break it down between a big stompy thing running up the field, Mega Knob being infantry, and then good support fire between Flash Kits and Ludas. So keep that as we go in mind as we keep going in to these list breaks. Then, of course, we have a Chaos Space Marine. I'm going to do this quick because they do have their codex released, and that's going to form new problems for us, but I don't care because we love to get stuck in. So we have a Chaos Lord, Cypher, which gives them an additional CP, a Dark Commune, Lucas the Eternal, which is just a Leaf Fighty Boy, Master of Executions, and a Warpsmith. We got Mobs, Legionnaires, Cultists, Predator, Destructors, Chosen, Forge Fiend, Raptors, Venom Crawlers, Plague Marines. As you can see, these are profiles that really get torn up by a bunch of Ludas. They actually a good amount of little infantry in here that are getting wounded on 2s, and a bunch of 3-up armor save vehicles that if you pop bigger shells for bigger gets, ignoring cover, you're bound to pop a Predator Destructor with 1 unit of Ludas with the shock attack gun. Of course, he can re-roll his amount of D6 shots to be quite reliable for that one turn that he goes off. And you're really looking at that Luda unit as a one-time kind of thing. And if they survive outside of that, they just doing extra work, right? They're doing homework. They're doing extra credit because they're, going to be blowing up from hazardous and they're quite small. He did put up a fat 20 on that. It seemed like it was a somewhat, kind of fun thematic list that he was probably trying out before he got the codex. So it is what it is. Still a good win. Now we'll take a look at his hard matchup, as he did have 2, but this is the one he tied with. And I think most Ork players can understand. Oops, I just clicked him again because I'm silly. Can understand that Sisters of Battle can be quite a difficult matchup for Orks, but as meta as a whole is really like, whoa, here we go. So Sisters are where they're at. So Junith gives a CP, and I actually pulled up some data sheets. That way we can all follow along for what some of these girls do. We have this Triumph of St. Catherine. So she gives multiple bonuses here that she can choose to do 2 of them as long as the unit has those models still alive. As in her actual unit, because I think as she dies, they get removed. So we have, they can give lethals, they can give 2 acts of faith, they can give a 6-up feel no pain as auras to anything near them. And they can give better leadership, which actually goes pretty good in tandem with their, what she had over here. She had what are those boys called that be punching? Boy, I've had a brain fart right here. Arcoflagellants, because Arcoflagellants are only leadership 8, and they are 2 wounds with the 4-up feel no pain and volume. So this is actually a tar pit for, let's say, like a Bully Boyz unit. But I don't know about a bunch of looters with 2 damage, right? But as for, where did I put my girl Morgan Vol? As for Morgan Vol, she helps units by getting reroll hits and rerolls wounds with her little dreadnought version of things, and she can get up to 3 attacks. So she can be a beat stick with devastating wounds. Of course, you can decide to give yourself 6s if you're near the Triumph and put these devastating wounds through. So she's kind of punching the Sisters of Battle, getting in here and getting stuck in with their thick leaders. So she does have a meta list, because once you go from Triumph St. Catherine, it's only 1 unit of Battle Sisters, 2 Rhinos, 2 Arcoflagellant units, 2 Castigators, 2 Crusaders. The Castigators of their versions are Lehman Russes with battle cannons, essentially, where they're only 1 AP but damage 3. And then you have the Paragon Warsuits, which to go with Morgan Vol. Repentia for more fighting sisters getting stuck in. A Seraphim, 2 Seraphim squads, 3 Seraphim squads to jump down, score secondaries alongside those Crusaders. So there's a lot of units here, and for some Ork armies, other lists, they might not like it as much. For all these 100-point Ludas and a Gorkanaut stomping down the field, a big battle wagon, the battle wagon can literally kind of just stand up there to some of the sister lists, as they don't have a ton of meltas. Castigators don't have good AP, therefore it's taking great armor saves against the Castigator. It wants to end up trying to close a distance, and you have stuff to get in kind of a mid-table fight with, especially once you start disembarking the Ludas, we'll say, or coming in from reserve, and you're within 24 inches. You have good volume, especially you're just going to choose sustain here. I'm going to just shoot these girls off the objectives now that they've got there, because I'm standing on the objectives as I'm trying to win. Overwatch units that want to try to get into engagement range with like things that I do have in the mid table. And so you're picking up sisters here, but they can very much play the game with you as they will, because of the triumph of St. Catherine, to be able to do multiple acts of faith and put some kind of reliable damage into you and still continue to score, because all these Seraphim units are still going around scoring. The Rhinos are still trying to. So there's a bunch of stuff here that you still have to account for, and sisters are no joke no matter what this is. Anybody could have won that game. As you can see, it was a tie, so I'm not going to say much more than that. But the fact that the Dread Mob actually held up to something like that is pretty nice. You know, Zagrot Wartsnaga, you know, would find a home, but the Arcoflagellants probably beat down the super runts when they get close. But as a whole, Sisters of Battle or something, it's hard to account for as they're not popular, but they're a very strong army. So good job tying there. And that's just something we have to be aware of. And combined force of arms still seems to be working, but keep in mind, these are a lot of, we'll say power armor, because there was a Tyranid list, but there's a good amount of power armor here and armies that just have a base 3 up armor save. Sorry, click my own boy. So then we have his second hardest matchup, which he actually did end up winning by 1 point, but this was Sons of Sanguinius, so the Blood Angels. You know, I did a difficult orc matchup video that didn't do too well, but in that difficult matchup video, while Blood Angels were seen as a bad faction and I didn't rate them too highly as a whole, I did say Sons of Sanguinius was the exception, because once you start getting that +2 strength in some of these profiles, you start pushing them over the threshold to actually be very damaging to orcs and very very effective into orcs, especially with their weird abilities. So you have 2 captains, Commander Dante, Lamartine, and the Sanguinor. So we know Commander Dante and the Marties, they're more for fighting and getting stuff more effective. But the Sanguinor is something that's really weird, as he can pretty much heroically intervene from reserves, right? So imagine he's in heaven or in space and he drops down and he's like, oh, and then he decides, hey, you have to fight me. He can actually pull away damage from combat armies, which makes this really hard when you're like, I really got to get going right now with my mega knobs. I have to get stuck in. And the Sanguinor is like, haha, you must put all your attacks into me. And if you cannot, you cannot fight. It is like that. So it's a really nice tech piece into other melee armies. We have 2 squads of assault intercessors, 2 impulsors, 2 ball predators, a Death Company dreadnought, Death Company Marines with jump packs. That's for Le Martis. And then we have the Sanguinor with the Sanguinary squad up in here, which is very, very expensive. And even though they do get a 2-up armor save because you can ignore cover, there's a chance that the Ludus can get in on this if the person doesn't have CP for some reason to do like Armor of Contempt or anything like that. And then only 1 unit of scouts. So I would like to think that the super runs got their way in here. You know, they were able, there's not really too much contesting them in the mid table. Commander Dante does punch, but it's not like super scary enough to really be like, I don't know if a Gorkanaut can't survive this for 1 turn. And like we said before, these are armies like the Ball Predator where the Ludus can pick these guys up. You're just, hey, I know that Ludus does pretty good for you. Usually an Orc matchup, it can sit there all game. Now it can't. I'm actually going to pick you up instead. So very interesting to see. I love to see that you put against a bunch of power armor and stuff that wants to die to 2-up armor saves, but he did also take out Tyranid. So we're just seeing a trend here of what he knew was in his meta, and it was actually a great call because I'm sure he's aware of some of these good players too. And he goes, well, if everybody's playing power armor, Ludus do great into power armor. So, hey, shout out to him. Let's see what this last matchup was for the Dread Mob. So we had Adeptus Custodes. Now, this is on the other spectrum where they don't have a 2-up armor save, but in fact, they actually do, because they do not have an Armor of Contempt. Therefore, it feels more like a 3-up armor save against Ludus, since you get to ignore cover, right? And as we'll see, they have the tanks for the Ludus to pop out here too. So we have Alea, because he's playing Talons of the Emperor's Custodes. So shout out to this Git for doing it. He must have been doing pretty good to even get this far. So he had Alea, Blade Champion, and Valerian, a Custodian Guard unit, 2 Sister Rhinos, a 3-man unit of Terminators, and here we see the Gravis tanks. Now, the Gravis tanks are in fact getting blown up by a Ludus squad. Maybe not super reliably if you get super unlucky just because you're still hitting on 6s, but with the rerolls, you very much can end up putting them enough damage into here. What you're really seeing is the rockets and the shock attack gun are doing the most damage to any of these units once you pop bigger shells for bigger gets. And that would feel really great into something like a Cladius Grav tank, which is looking for those battle wagons to hunt them down and blow them up. He does have 2 units of Warden, so the Mega Knives have something to go to toe with, and that's where you'll actually appreciate those really high damage punches from the Gorkanaut. He'll come in there and be like, "Well, you have you have that great feel no pain, but here's 6 damage, pop him on the head." So I love to see that. We have prosecutors, vigilators, witch seekers, and then Kyla Draxus. So she's most likely with that guardian unit that we seen in the beginning, giving them some flamer shots, or I think it's +1 to hit, or he +1 to hit, I believe, also. So it's actually a really good combo to put in with your guardian units. So once you got these 2 grav tanks, you can see for 215 points a pop, that's almost a quarter of their army starting to go. And the sisters end up being great targets for Ludas, and because Ludas are so cheap, and everything's here trying to get on the objective as custos really want to be there, you can do this a lot of just redundant damage. Just like with the Wardens, you're like, well, I can just chip and chip and chip, and if you pop that feel no pain to my shooting, then you're not getting it to melee and vice versa. So that can actually putting thoughts to the custodian player where he makes the wrong choice. He could disrespect the Luda shooting and be like, well, you hit on 6s, and you're like, yeah, but you're standing on that objective. Here you go. A bunch of shots should damage you down, 3 damage rockets coming through everywhere. It becomes awesome. So this guy on his own has figured out the dread mob. So shout out for Martin Holgren, whoa, for figuring out that dread mob. And Luda seemed to be the real deal. And we know mathematically they were the real deal of what it was, but people were still wondering, do I just bring 1 unit? I was still not super sure about how many I would bring. I'd say maybe 1, maybe none. And most people were favoring more towards killer cams between all the tier list videos and between all of the Ork Codex breakdowns, even though we knew the math, because we were still thinking in practicality, what can I really do with something that hits on 6s consistently? Well, what you can do is consistently kill stuff that stands on the objective, as every turn of the game, someone wants to stand on the objective. And when you have Ludas, you're like, someone's getting this section, someone's getting the angle of fire this turn, and I'm going to make them rain. I'm going to make it rain. So shout out to Martin. I appreciate that. Great job. And we hope to see more dread mobs and enthusiasts and people figure out the list for the dread mob, because the more options that there are for people to be aware of and scared of when they're facing the orcs, the better for us as the orc community as a whole, because we're like, all right, well, you don't know who's coming. Is it Bully Boyz or Dread or Green Tide or Cult of Speed? So or War Horde still sneaking back there, hiding around everybody's head. So dread mob did great. So take a look at chat, see if anything got anything to say. All right, you guys been doing good. You guys are playing Dread Mob. Let's go, boys. So we have another tournament here. We have the South Coast 40K GT. This was in England, and it's a 2-day RTT with 5 games. So it's not that many players. That's why we called it a 2-day RTT. Just wanted to point that out, so you guys can take that with a grain of salt if you wish. But still, I thought it was something good to go over. We have Tom Green from Mind Goblins. And our boy did bring a Bully Boyz list. So as we've seen, most of the players were Bully Boyz. We went to the Dread Mob player, and now we're at the Bully Boy. So he did do what I thought some kids might do, but I wasn't sure. Is the Ghaz cool? Now, I love Ghaz. I will say that I'm on the Ghaz hype, just like a lot of other people. I've had that Ghaz juice, and I love it. I'll just say that he does work in the ways that orcs need, and we can talk about that in a little bit. So we have a Big Mech and Mega Armor, one typical Warboss on foot, 2 Warbosses and Mega Armors, boom, that's it. So we didn't go overboard with the characters. We don't see triple Warbosses. You have 2 units of boys, 2 units of Gretchen, 3 Meganoms, all of them with twin kill sauce. I do just want to question why, oh why, if so. Did you choose twin kill sauce over power claws? I'm very much in for Ghaz's unit. I'm very much in favor for power claws on Ghaz's unit specifically, as the volume, the critical 5s, and the +1 to wound alongside his sweep attacks just gives you a crazy amount of volume of damage too. Winning stuff reliably that has maybe a 4-up invuln that you're trying to shoot through. And I think twin kill sauce kind of just doesn't take the most benefit from, let's say, a double wall. Now, twin kill sauce are still great, especially if you're going into a bunch of high armor armies. So maybe that's the right call. I just wanted to know, point this out for this, and we'll take a look at that as we look at his matchups. Then we have a big unit of knobs, of course, with power claws. That's that 1 scalpel unit. Warboss, get in there. You got to throw this unit away. It's going to kill something and then get deleted. 1 storm boy unit, 2 Warbiker units. Now, it's interesting he didn't go for 2 Storm Boys and 1 Warbiker, as you see usually. Maybe he thought this is along the lines of something that's kind of tough and just can't get shot away from bolters. When my boys are pressuring, someone can be like, well, a small arms fire is not going to work anyways against these guys, so I'm going to shoot those Storm Boys. It might be that he's like, well, I'm just going to leave Bikers there because then your leftover pity fire that you're not willing to put into my Mega Knobs can't really find a reliable home. So maybe that's the case. It could be just a toughness thing, right? And then 3 or 5 5 trucks. So I love to see the trucks coming back. I still think trucks are where it's at. And I like that he still found so many trucks because he kept the characters light in this list. Has some trucks that are just for throwing away with boys and some that are for escorting our big gets. Just another thing to point out here is you do not see the teleporter enhancement on here. So he decided I don't really need to come in on deep strike. I'm just going to run up the field with my 5 trucks. So there we go. Let's take a look at his path to victory, as it's quite important as always. So for Tom Green's list, who'd he go into first? We got Space Wolves, but this is not Wolf Jail. This is the Gladius Task Force. So we do have Apothecary Biologist with the Fire Discipline for that awesome throttling fire. 1 Tech Marine, very interesting, just 1. A Aggressor Squad, another big Aggressor Squad with Flame Gauntlets, and the other one has the Auto Bolt Storm Gauntlets. A Ballistus Dreadnought, an Infiltrator Squad, a Land Raider Redeemer, followed by 2 Scouts, a Storm Strike Speeder, 2 Vindicators, and 2 Wolfen. What I will say is Vindicators are quite awesome into Orks. If you're ever facing Vindicators, is dang, just don't even, if you tag them, they're still going to keep shooting you pretty hard. They do have a 2-up armor save. Vindicators are very much worth their point, so respect them. As for Wolfen, they do hit hard into something that doesn't have a great armor save, but Mega Knobs are at that point, that toughness and that armor save that they can actually tank Wolfen pretty hard and then clap back. So they can take the initiative from you, but it's also one of the only units that Mega Knobs can beat with OC, because they have none. So it's kind of funny. The Storm Strike Speeders here is the compound for buffing. I believe it's +1 to wound on something that it chooses. And then you have the Land Raider Redeemer. Everybody likes that. Every unit's going to have infiltrators, guys. If not 2 units of infiltrators on Space Marines, just keep that in mind. Because Grey Knights, Necrons, still very powerful. Very much Space Marine players want to screen their backfield. That's why, doing deploys as a fixed secondary isn't necessarily always possible, at least not in your opponent's backfield. It's going to be a mid-table sort of thing because a lot of those infiltrators exist. Now, these 2 Aggressor Squads, all I can see here is most of their damage is wanting to come from the mid-table, as you would imagine from a Space Wolf list. And you're just not going to do that into a double Bully Boyz unit with that many Mega Knobs and Ghaz. Ghaz in a funny way into some of these things, like a big unit of aggressors that want to run and charge into you, or something, or you want to start getting in the way with your Vindicators and say, hey, you can't kill me. Something like a Ghaz not only acts as a hammer to destroy something like a Vindicator and pick up the Wolfen that are near it, with the Mega Knobs, being there for lethal. But in a way, the Vindicator's there. I mean, it's there to punch out the Land Raider that's getting in the way to hold up the middle of the table. But he acts as a bulwark sometimes to stand in the way when people want to countercharge with something like aggressors. And you're like, well, now you got to eat my Ghaz unit, and you're going to punch away 4 or 5 of the Mega Knobs, and then you're going to have to deal with Ghaz. And Ghaz is going to end up just punching the crap out of you and still doing great. And that's a real problem for something like a Space Marine army, where they just want to hit you and hope you're still not there anymore. And a big problem that always was kind of consistent with Orks when they would fight Marines is you'd come in, you'd hit them, and if they did not get crippled or just straight up die, then whatever their remnant was in their unit would kill you or just fall back and kill you. In this case, you're pretty much demolishing whatever these units are, as they don't have invulns. They're just going based off armor saves, and we have high enough strength to just kind of wound them very effectively for the Space Wolf list. So really, it's more like Wolf Jail that we're scared of than like a Gladius Force, though Gladius Force is very good because the detachment ability is good. Into Bully Boyz, we're just kind of, you're not falling back and doing all that, buddy. We're just kind of running you over. So then we have Eldaria as his 3rd matchup with the Avatar of Cain, Death Jester, Farseer, Trope, and Yavrin. And then the Fate's Messenger as on the Death Jester. We have 2 trope, 3 trope, 4 trope, 4 tropes, 5 tropes, whatever they're called, of these Harley Quinns. You know, they're fine because he's playing the Incarn, or not the Incarn, whatever it's called, the Eldari mix of the two different things. It's fine. It's a lot of different units that have very special weapons that can do quite good killing potential. So I get why they bring it. We have a Star Weaver, followed by 1, 2, 3 Falcons with 2 Rangers, a Void Weaver, and another Void Weaver. Here's the thing. Nothing here is holding the line on the mid table, and you're putting everything on the back of the Avatar of Cain. And though he is very durable in most ways, the Avatar of Cain is still getting crumped by Ghaz and the man's units. And of course, you're also getting support from the lethal from that. But the fact that he's already giving lethal to his unit on 5s is devastating. All these small units that are running around don't want to even trade with the unit of boys, especially on the wall where now they're getting lethal. They're just like, I'm definitely buzzing saw throwing you. His bikers can end up getting some shots off here. The Harlequins have to. Sorry, the Harlequins. The Harlequins and the Eldar themselves still have to play the game. Like, these Falcons want to sit back and just shoot you with shuriken cannons. And try to pop your trucks, and you just roll a couple 6s and invulns, or they don't roll enough of their damage, and or they don't, put allocated enough because they still have to use their miracle dice, whatever they're called. It's not an easy win for them by any means, and these are the kind of armies that we were already running down with the index. So giving Bully Boyz that, just you run them down even harder, and Tom just put up 100 points on him. You have so many trucks, right? Then you have this 4th matchup, which was his actual lowest scoring matchup. Well, Leagues of Voltan are difficult for us in many ways, and I'm not sure if they're like a predator anymore, just because we have so many options and they can't tech for all of them. But they are a difficult matchup if you don't know what they can do, and if the Leagues of Voltan are smart enough to token grudge the correct units. If he just chooses like the bad units, like for example, when we were playing Index, they would put it on a trike that a 4 of field note. They wouldn't put it on the trike that a 4 of field no pain. Therefore, the trike with the 4 of field no pain could just run up, stand on objective, and be like, well, you're not killing me because I'm not token. So, oops, you messed up. And then you got free game with the Tricog game and scored all day and tagged everything. So, with Leagues of Voltan, we have the Einhir champion with Grim Demeanor, Einhir champion with Appraising Glare, and Einhir champion with a long list. So, these are just ways that they're going to compound their tokens. Then we have 3 units of Brokir Thunderkeen and 1, 2, 3 units of Einhir Hearthguard. Now, since this list pretty much just has a couple data sheets, I said, why don't I just go ahead and show you these data sheets? So here's the data sheet. We have a Brokir Thunderkeen. So they're at the T6, and we've seen that they actually brought the Gravitation Blast Cannon. It is a pretty short range, being at 18-inch range. These guys do not have transports from what I've seen on their list. Let me go back to it just in case I missed it. No, he just has Pioneers after that. That's why I said I was going to show you these. So he has no transport. So he's just like 12 inches. Let's go. I'm gonna pop your truck, because it is anti-vehicle 2+ blast, but it is only strength 5 -2, 2 damage when it's not shooting a vehicle. So that's where it's at. It does do Overwatch on a 5+. He did bring 3 of them. Not sure how effective they were into Bully Boyz, except for we do know this Bully Boy list did have 5 trucks on it. Right? Yeah, did have 5 trucks on it. So it could have gotten value there. Oops, I just erased all the way back. He did get value there. And then we have the Einhir we have the Einhir Hearthguard right up in here, which are their versions of Terminators. So they have the same buff that our knobs have with that defensively, with the characters leading the unit. Each time attack targets this unit, if it's greater than the unit's toughness, subtract 1 to wound roll. They're a nice T6, which feels pretty good. Also, this says character for Orks. Don't get it twisted. Our knobs only do the -1 to subtract to wound from the Warboss leading the unit. So not the Pain Boy, nothing else. That's how these are different. Now, this unit, let's see what he actually brought. Did he bring the same loadout for all of them? He brought concussion gauntlets, plasma, concussion gauntlet, plasma, and then volcanic disintegrator for one of his units. So these are the volcanic as the devastating wounds. So he is trying to get devastating wounds off with his volume from there. They're 3 attacks each. And then he didn't bring the hammer. He just brought the plasma bait gauntlet, it looked like. Did I mess that up? Concussion gauntlet. Concussion gauntlet is strength 9 -2, 2 damage for only 2 attacks. Yikes. That's very low on an amount of attacks, even going into a Bully Boyz unit. And then he had Did he have any that had anything better? Sorry. The volcanic disintegrator is the dev wounds. He had the grenade launcher, the plasma gun. Um, the plasma gun is strength 8, -3, 2 damage. So that's all right when you start doing, and then you have the grenade launcher here for, D6. So you can put a good amount of wounds on everything else that isn't the mega knobs. But that's the thing. This army, this list, doesn't have anything to soak up, or move block or delay with transports or anything like that. These are all value besides these pioneers. And killing them even value for us because this is what they're using to score with. So I could see that he was very, let's say, hesitant, or maybe it was just a low scoring mission, as he did only score 66 points here. But it could be because each one of these units, they can start just throttling. Hey, I'm going to put double sustain 2 on this thunder cannon brick, and then I'm going to blow away one of your units and all these things. So it is a very unusual Leagues of Voltan list. Not really sure what he was doing there, but I just wanted to show the data sheet so you guys can understand the strength of the profiles. And then, of course, the Leagues of Voltan's actually buff. So Leagues of Voltan do have good combos, but they're just not in a great place as a whole. And you brought no transports, which was typically the weakness against us. Like, we hated that they had so many good cheap transports, and this guy's like, I'm not going to bring any. I'm just going to bring all shooting and thickness. So as for his last matchup, he went into this guy, Matthew Cedric, which ended up getting second place. So he had Yanari. That's what that is called when you mix them up. Sorry. So we have Lilac Nightspear, Yavrin, Farseer Skyrunner, and then we have Mandrake Rangers. 1, 2, 3 units of Scourges. So Scourges are disgusting. They're very annoying as they have scoot and shoot, right? So they'll pop out with their dark lances. Yeah, las cannons on these little infantry Eat It Eradicators. They just jump out and they're like, hello, shoot you, and then they fly, and they have wings, so they do actually fly away. Very annoying. Then you have 2 Shadow Specters, a Striking Scorpion unit, Swooping Hawks, a trope of Harlequins, Warp Spiders. Big units of Warp Spider with Flamers were devastating. I'm surprised they're just gone now. I wonder why. Shroud Runners, Sky Weavers, 2 support weapons, a Warwalker, which is somewhat durable to everyone but Orks and Bully Boyz. And yeah, so as we said, when you're bringing those bikers and those boys and trucks and just 5 trucks as a whole, you really are just closing in the distance on this unit, on this list of Eldar, and you're like, well, you have to play me in the game. And when their shooting doesn't cut it, as it very much might not cut it against the Bully Boyz, because they're disembarking you and then they're trying to kill the stuff inside of it. Then they're trying to actually countercharge you, and if a couple of your units stay alive, a couple of your models stay alive, or they're just there for the counterattack, you're just there for the, clapback, we'll say, then they're gone, and the game's pretty much over for them. So they already had an issue with Orks when we would do that, as they got debuffed before. It wasn't a blowout, though. This was a very close game within 3 points of each other. Like in WTC from the Dread Mob list we seen, this would have been a draw. So take that in mind, as it wasn't by any ways easy, but it is their weakness. Even though Eldar is still a very strong army, the fact that he just has so many activation, he's going to just try to keep scoring if he's a smart player, and not really worry about just killing everything. It would be, hey, I kill your scoring units, and then I get more OC on the objective, as we know that that's pretty much the Bully Boyz' main weakness. So did they have a Night Spinner? Did I miss that? No, that's Great Runner. Okay, I was like, because if they have a Night Spinner, they start slowing your movement, and just disgusting them on a Dark Lance, as you can imagine. You have a little bit of respect, but they can pop a bunch of your trucks. Yeah, and Tom did pull this out. So shout out to Tom Greens from Mind Goblins War for getting undefeated with the Bully Boyz, even though it was an RTT. It's still pretty dope because there's 2 days of getting good games, and so good job. I appreciate that. And we'll see what else the Bully Boyz brings. I'm not sure still about Bully Boyz on Ghaz as a whole, but I will say I can see it, just because Ghaz himself is disgusting in the game. He's just super good. I appreciate him very much. I'm on the Ghaz hype, and he is making it on most of my list. So he said, I'm glad I caught it live. It was such a joy to talk about so many detachments and that are interesting and effective. Exactly. Interesting and effective. We're even talking about how Cult of Speed, people might have the wrong idea of, I'm just going to bring a bunch of vehicles. How about you don't bring it down and say, I'm going to start the game with minus 20 points? Like, no thanks, right? You don't have to give up a complete bring it down. You can give it like a 14-point bring it down, and then you can bring what we would call a combined arms force, where you're bringing infantry alongside it. So yeah, there's very much interesting things you could do even with cult of speed that haven't been examined, and just how the green tide is very much real but unreliable to be seen. It's like we're gonna see if the meta just adjusts for Bully Boyz, or if they really start to come in line with the green tide too. So there's still a lot of stuff developing, even though everybody's calling from the wind, oh, nerf orcs. I'm like, how about you just get used to orcs? You guys were just used to shooting everybody. Now we're an army that can cover the table, not allow these shenaniganing upping down armies not get punished for what they do, and everybody's mad about it. So how about don't be mad that we can actually punish the up down armies. Don't get mad that we're causing the game to be a different way, because a lot of our lists did go 4-1. And there's still a lot of other armies that are doing quite well as well. So you don't want to just nerf everything just willy-nilly just because they're hard. I do think Mega Knobs can go up a little, like 5 points, but not much. And I think the meta and the new books from Talent CSM can start to kind of even pull us down a little bit too. So we'll see how that goes. I'm actually still very excited regardless, because there's multiple detachments that can do good. So he said, would you like some sauce? I'm on the fence about Ghaz. I've ran him twice in Bully Boyz, and he was definitely fun and effective. Can I take a Warboss plus boys plus truck enhancement for his cost though? That's on you and against what you're facing, right? If Ghaz made a difference for you in your games, or your meta specifically. Like, I knew Ghaz made a difference for me in my Tide army, as Space Wolf Jail from the cavalry, really was, I can just fall back and keep hitting you and shoot through you by turn 3 and push you off the middle. But then you have Ghaz and you're like, nah. So it's really up to you. So then, yeah, keep getting your stuff in. We're going to cover one more list, and then I'll go back to the comments. So now, going into the last list, we have Carnage Season 2, Round 3. So this is considered a ITC, UKTC registered. The terrain pack, I won't show that this time around. We'll see how we start to integrate that. But now we know it is UKTC, and it is a GT level, and it was in England. So we'll take a look at Chris's Taylor 4-1 list, which is very respectable. So we do have another Bully Boyz list, but this Bully Boyz list is unlike the other, as this has triple Warboss and Mega Armor. Boom, that's it with all the enhancements. Other list had Ghaz, no enhancements. This list brought the 3 Warbosses, 3 Mega Bosses. I think a lot of people can understand that. 1, 2, 3 units, 4 units of trucks, 2 units of Gretchen, and then, of course, the Commandos. So we've seen Zagra, and now we've seen Commandos. So I know in our Discord we were talking about, hey, this is going to be the season of the infiltrators / scouts. We'll see who come out on top. One thing we don't see is a Snickrot here, right? So this guy chose to pay for the Mando tax instead of just paying for solo Snickrot. So keep that in mind as you guys are designing your list. Just because you didn't see Mandos yet doesn't mean they're not where it's at. The game's changing, a lot of big table activity. We can see Mandos being useful. Still pretty expensive though. Then we have 3 units of Mega Knobs. Interesting take that 2 of them have power claws and 1 have twin kill saws and power claws. So this is a little odd, but hey, it is what it is. Maybe it's just what he had as his loadout. Then he had a big brick of knobs and then 2 5-man units of knobs and power claws. I see this question a lot. Absolutely yes. 2 units of 5 knobs with 2 individual war bosses is fantastic, especially because you can put them both in one truck, stage the truck, jump out, get in a skirmish, jump out, get in a skirmish. Especially because Bully Boyz, you can get in the fight doing these things at the right time. So absolutely, that's a good combo. And of course, I love the knobs just for their big activation of punching something out cold. Then 2 units of Storm Boys. So not a ton of scoring activating units here. He has to be careful with his Mandos because they have to perform their job and duty for that price. But you do have the trucks left over and a couple Storm Boys. As for his enhancements, real quick, he had big gobs. He wants to yell at someone and take leadership checks. He wants the biggest boss, so you can give his war boss to wounds 9. And then the teleport for that deep strike. So let's take a look at his path to victory. So his first game was against the Thousand Suns, and he did get a 100 here. So he had an Exalted Sorcerer and Disc of Zeech. So you know what? I'm going to show you guys that data sheet as well, as I think it's very important as you go into understanding the T-Suns matchup, as they are one of the matchups that can be multiple of our Ork Ork detachments. So we have the Exalted Sorcerer Disc of Zeech. Now I'm going to look at his ability over here in this corner. It's a psychic. At the end of your movement phase, you can select one enemy unit within 18 and visible to the Psyker. Roll a d6. On a 1, the Psyker suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 2+ until the start of your next movement phase, that enemy unit is bound. While that unit is bound, half the movement characteristics of the unit and have the advance and charge rolls for that unit. Ouch. Of course, he also has what was it here? He has his flamer right here that he has that is also oops, sorry, things in the way. D6 -2, D3. You can choose to make it devastating for that. So he's someone that you want to keep in mind. And then when he does take some of these enhancements, like he could choose, let's say something like, I think it's Arcane Vortex. Arcane Vortex adds 1 to the strength and damage for the psychic weapon. So then he can get D3 +1 damage and strength 7, which puts you over for the knobs, and they're taking 4 up armor saves there, unless you do use Armor of Contempt and such. But then, of course, you have Magnus around here. So let's get back to the list real quick. But he's a debuff pretty much running around, throwing psychic damage at you and debuffing you as you move around the table. Then you have Magnus the Red, followed by Thousand Suns Demon Prince on wings. So I should actually have double checked this one. I might check in a second. But one of the Demon Princes gives precision to Terminators. So let's see if he has Terminators. We have Rubric Marines. They have Flamers, another Rubric Marine. So of course 4 5-man units of Rubric Marines, followed by 2 Rhinos, 3 Chaos Spawn, a Forge Fiend, and another Forge Fiend. So I think he was just using the Demon Princes as Demon Princes. This wasn't the most meta version of the list. As you'll see, I believe most of the more meta versions have multiple of these discs of Zeech, and more of them. They go very character heavy in 1,000 Suns. So I think for that being off meta, he put up 100 points against that 1,000 Suns list, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, 1,000 Suns going in. So now we're going into his, and keep in mind, 1,000 Suns with their movement shenanigans, with Magnus being kind of somewhat killy on his own in many ways, in many matchups. It's something you have to keep in mind for if there's 1,000 Suns hovering around in your place, he's gonna be a problem for you, even if you're running Bully Boyz, as they have a bunch of powerful strength abilities getting into dev wounds and such, and flamers. So then we have his second matchup. Let's see what he went into. He went into Necron's Canoptic Court. So we have the Nightbringer, who is a super tiny model, and I will not be over it, as that's frustrating. We have a Catan Shard of the Void Dragon, a Technomancer, and then another Technomancer, followed by a Canoptic Arcanides. I'm not even sure what that thing is. A Canoptic Doomstalker, another one. 2 Scarab Swarms, followed by 2 Wraith Bricks, a Locust Destroyer unit, a 3-man with the Exterminator, and then another unit with the Gauss Reaper. So he does only have 2 units of only 2 units of these wraiths on this list, and then he relies kind of heavily on these Void Dragons, these Catans. This is the sort of thing where you do appreciate having a bunch of trucks and having maybe Mandos to just take up the distance already and maybe try to stop some of those wraiths from getting on the objective. It really does come down to, am I just going to try and bully these guys? As you know, Orks actually do have the volume to punch out one of these wraith units. Of course, you want to epic challenge them if you can, so you can kill the character that's actually giving them the 5-up feel no pain. And as for how that comes to playing against the Nightbringer and the Void Dragon, it does take a little bit of your CP investment to understand that I'm going to throw maybe grenades here and there, try to just kind of block people out with the trucks and try to out-OC them as I kill the rest of his list, as everything's pretty stationary, and you can actually gain the initiative against a lot of these things as the Bully Boyz army. And using the CP, I'm going to just re-roll these hit rolls and really punch out these wraiths. It's going to feel really good. This is where I would have liked to see Ghaz in the sort of list, but he's nice to see that he still got it done without a Ghaz. Did end up still performing quite well with an 83-point win, but it wasn't an easy win, as he didn't get to max out and go hard. He had to kind of go toe-to-toe with them, it seems like, for at least one turn where he just came out on top there. Then we have his third matchup, which is Richard Halfax. So this is a Tau army. I believe this is the old, maybe it's not, sorry. I think this is the new version of Tau. I should have checked that beforehand. Sorry. I guess you'll be taking bringing it down. So we have. Oh yeah, it is a new one because he has I think retaliation cadre is a new one. So yeah, it's a new one for sure. We have the commander in Enforcer Battlesuit, another Commander Enforcer Battlesuit, and an Ethereal. So shout out to Tau for losing their Forge World guy that gave him the rerolls, the Tesla dude or whatever he was called. So shout out to them for losing that. We can feel your pain, but we don't feel sorry for you. We have the Crisis unit with the Star Scythe Battlesuit. So 1, 2 units, 3 units of Ghost Keels. This is more like anti-shooting kind of units that you choose. 2 Hammerhead gunships, a Piranha, Riptide Battlesuit, a couple Riptide Battlesuits, Stealth Suits, boom. Mandos probably pulled out pretty good here. You can choose to, because you're Bully Boys, to go, well, I'm going to just go ahead and WAAAGH turn 1 and get my Mandos to get in there. You're not really punching me off you. I'm touching things. I'm delaying you. And you can't overwatch me. And then now I just get to kind of stage up, position myself, then come out and WAAGH into you. And I've just blasted you, punched you straight up off the table. Of course, they could get in the way with some of these units. So you might need to commit, like a small unit of knobs to run up and punch something out, like a Piranha or something if it's trying to get in your way. But for the most part, Mandos really shine in something like this. Something like, let's say World Eaters, Tau, any Iron Storm detachment, Mandos can kind of find their place. So I'm sure that he actually appreciated the Mandos in this matchup. And Tau does have a really good play into some Ork list, but Mandos might have just been the key, and he just called that out. So shout out to the Mandos, because like we said, man, playing the take game in the middle of the early is pretty nice. And I've seen a bunch of people talk about taking Mandos and Zod or something like that into their Bully Boys list. So I don't know if you need double the investment, but maybe one if you know you're going to run into these things is a big deal. Then we have his 4th matchup, which was Thunder Pups. So this is the Stormland Space Wolf Jail. So we have Logan Grimnar on Storm Rider. This gives him, I believe, reroll wounds and charges once per game. So he does like his version of the wall, and he punches pretty hard. Then we have the Wolfguard Battle Leader, another Wolfguard Battle Leader, another one, and then a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf with Fury of the Storm. So he just has like one captain to give them free strats, I believe. The Wolf Lord, I don't think this is the one. No, he's not the one that gives devastating wounds. So there's that. We have the Gladiator Lancer, followed by Infiltrators, Redeemer. Okay, Redemptor Dreadnought. Scouts, Thunderwolf Cavalry, and then a smaller unit, Thunderwolf Cavalry. Vindicator, Wolfen, Clades Assassin. So it's not true Ork jail, cavalry jail, as normally they'll bring even double up on the characters and max units of cavalry. He did choose to go kind of combined arms between the Vindicators and such. Vindicators do great. Redemptor Dreadnought, they can cause Ork units to bounce, but not with our Bully Boys, as we're getting our full potential there and we're putting multiple units into them. But you do still want to maybe invest a grenade here and there just to make sure you get through it. And that might be why he said twin kill songs, but this guy brought some power claws too. So a bit surprising. And I really like to see Ghaz in these matchups, but he still got to make it work. Mind you, this is on UKTC. It's a little bit different of a matchup, so that could be why he didn't pull a full like Space Wolf kind of jail list. He might just said, I want some guns, which ended up having the Bully Boys able to chew through his Space Wolves a little too early and reliable. Because that's what I would see that kind of happening in that matchup, where it's like, I don't have every single amount of space with Thunderwolf Cavalry, and that third unit sometimes is just a breaking point, and he didn't have that third big brick to punch through on Bully Boys. And regardless, maybe he wins second, because it looks like he went 100 points on that boy. So shout out to Chris for taking out the Space Wolves, as a lot of people are seeing them as a difficult army to go into, and they are. But when you have a bunch of Mega Knobs and we're saying you go first, and you might not anymore, because both those guys can straight up bounce off Mega Knobs, especially on the WAAAGH. So very nice to see. Getting reroll hits means that you're actually putting enough 2 damage on them, and you're wounding them on 2s with twin kill saws. If you have them, you're putting crazy volume on knobs, so it feels very good. Now, last but certainly not least, he went into Thousand Suns. Chris Cardine is the guy, I guess. Obviously, Chris guy was doing crazy on score already, very very good. So he went into him. Chris Taylor did take a loss. He did put up 83 points, so very good, admirable attempt. But he did go into Thousand Suns, like we spoke of earlier, because Thousand Suns do have the tools with their quick movement shenanigans, nasty overwatches, Magnus getting off on his game. and being able to put, like we said, these exalted sorcerers on disc on you, right here with reducing your movement, your charges, and your advances. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting amount of debuffing for such a small package. And he has 2 right here on top of also having Infernal Masters and Magnus the Red. So he has 1, 2 units, 3 units of 5 Rubric Marines, and then 1 big unit of Rubric Marines. Interesting. So maybe he's trying to throttle that one with his Dev Wounds. 2 units of Zangars, followed by 1,000 Suns Rhino, 1,000 Suns Cultist, 2 units of those. As you can see, he paid a little bit more for the tax for, I'm just going to have more reliable characters, because those characters are really what's benefiting from the detachment in the army, and they're really just abusing their ritual capabilities and such like that for just some nasty damage and movement potential. I mean, they can auto see you with something like a Magnus, even on a small unit of Bully Boyz, like a knob, just, hey, I can just kill some of you and I'm here. So they can choose when to kill you, just enough to kill you, put stuff in the way to delay you, and then win that way as well, because he was just straight up pulling points, which means he had to actually stand on multiple objectives. So the mission play could come into a factor here too. But shout out to Chris putting up a valiant effort, because thousands are one of those armies that they'll get you, man. They'll get you with their fancy shenanigans here with this guy Exalted Sorcerer, or they'll just get you with extra crazy damage that you just weren't ready for once you weren't in the Watering anymore. So shout out to Chris Taylor for going 4-1 with the Orks. Whoa, for the England UKTC. Let's go. You guys have your meta and stuff set up there, and I understand it, and that's why I take all that into consideration, and I try to look at all of it, because we all are part of the Great WAAAGH here. So you gets, I'll take a look at the chats now real quick as we go into any closing thoughts or anything. So he goes, how do you feel about Bully Boyz with only 1 unit of Meganauts for a teleporter? I was thinking about using a lot of Warboss keywords to get the army-wide double wall. So were you thinking about Trikes? Were you thinking about, let's see, Squighog Boys? I would say I'm not sold on Squighog Boys in the Bully Boyz, so I'm not sure if I would give a Meganauts for that. I think you very much just want more Meganauts. I really do. So I'm not a fan of it. If you have it, you can run it and still have success, because it's not just based off the Bully Boyz. But for peak potential, you do want the Bully Boyz, and you do want at least 3 war bosses if you're trying to go away from at all from the Mega Knobs. So you want 3 war bosses on foot. I would fill those kind of units up first, like Bricks of Knobs or a big unit of boys, and then move on to something like, maybe I'll bring a Trike and some commandos first, maybe an Alpha Strike, and then think of Squighog Boys. I just don't think Squighog Boys pull their muster anymore. At least especially not without like Warhorde, where they can pull their unit support. Then he goes, I had Luna Ludas kill 20 guardsmen with Overwatch. That's disgusting. I love that. I don't even think with sustained you have enough shots. If you're within 24 inches and you're getting sustained, you probably do. So we have, what detachments do you like against another war boss without knowing their list? Oh, Green Tide, Green Tide. I mean, that I've Green Tide kind of just bullies the Bully Boyz. And you could, against some of these even dread mob lists, just run up and tag everything and just be like, you're not gonna shoot well, or you better hope those looters go off and save you, So I would say probably Green Tide, but I'm biased to Green Tide. The Battle Wagon has a kill equip, so it can transport only 12. Oh, okay. Thanks for calling that out. Should have seen that earlier. Maybe he did have that. Well, then, even then, if he only commits 12, that means the mech gun might have been with. Oh, that's a good shout out, because the mech gun might have been the little mech could have been with the battle wagon, taking advantage of the battle wagon with the flash gets, using that as a DACA wagon, because now you're getting +1 a hit for the kill cannon and all the flash gets guns in there. So that's a good shout out, actually, Jimenez. I appreciate that. I wish I would have seen it sooner. So shout out if we make sure we get that in there. David, edit that in. All right. So then we have the shout out to Red Mario for the school on the Cult of Speed. Yeah. Scott Ludas, there we go. It was good. Yeah, he said table, and other people are just giving the Ludas a lot of credit. So I'm gonna be giving the Ludas some more tests, and the Dread Mob myself. We'll get stuck in with that. I've been loving the Green Tide, so I'm gonna come to you guys with the Green Tide video. I think it's gonna be the excellent, one of the best ones out there. Kind of maybe even come with some hot takes that some people aren't really assuming or ready for. So I appreciate you guys with that. It's an exciting time for the Orks, guys. This is just week 2. You know, we can really see what the book can do. We don't have to know what Cult of Speed does. Really, people haven't figured that out, but I believe it's going to look more like the Dread Mob list that we just seen, where you're going to take a couple units that can shoot well, or do a lot of actions well, and then you're going to take the old Ork reliables and have a bunch of combined force of arms there, where you're going to get stuck in a fight and have other stuff running around scoring the game for you. So Cult of Speed might just be where that's at. Might be like a pressure focused game where you end up jumping in on people and beating them up and shooting them up and then slowly getting tabled, but you scored every secondary that came up. So you came good and you held the objective. So we'll see how that looks. The Dread Mob, I'm really happy to see where it's at. I'll be the first one to say I think I was, a little off by the Ludas. I underestimated them just a little bit, and I could have to revisit them, but I don't think I'm the only one. I think a lot of Ork content creators or people who are just talking about Orks from looking at them were saying Ludas look good. They look good on paper. They look good on math. But realistically, what's the practicality of bringing more than just one unit to just blow someone off the table, right? This is about the fact that he brought 3 units, and that could actually seem very viable when you start looking at the matchups and going through the motions of each turn of, I'll disembark now and shoot, or you're on the objective and I now get to shoot you and enjoy you, because every turn someone's playing the mission, and that means you got to get someone to shoot every mission of the objective of the game. So cheap trade for shooting and getting a lot of potential into these infantry, lead infantry kind of power armored units, right? So I'm really excited for the Orks, and I hope everybody's excited for the rise of the Green Tide. And I mean that in the whole sense, general sense, right? The Orks as a whole is the Green Tide, right? Not just the detachment. So if you are riding out for the Green Tide, you better be getting them workouts in, boy, because that'd be taking stamina. So there's one thing to keep in mind is don't cross a wall, because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!